Hello everyone! In this video, we're going to have an introduction to while loops. And as a reminder, these are considered one of the three most important programming concepts we'll see in this class. The first two being if statements and for loops, which we've already seen. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new script. And let's just kind of have a quick refresher of how for loops worked. So remember, the syntax was we say for I equal to v, where v is some vector, and then we kind of go through the vector and kind of do something inside of the for loop. So this isn't supposed to say video reader. Just a reminder of the basic syntax. If you haven't seen the for loop video yet, I recommend going back and watching that first. Just a quick reminder of the syntax. So while loop syntax is going to be very similar. So let's do something like while, it's gonna start with the word while, and let's say while x is less than 12, let's say. So the way you want to think about this is saying, so long as x is less than 12, we're going to enter the while loop and do something. So now let's say x equal to x plus 3. Then we're going to end it with the word end. So same as with if statements and for loops. So one thing that we can do is I'm going to put the word, or I'm going to do a display here, and let's say like another loop, so that we know, okay, x is less than 12, let's say we enter the while loop, another loop has kind of been accomplished, and we go back through. So maybe one more thing I want to do is I'm going to do display, let's say, final result. And let's say x. So something to notice here is that final result is in quotes because this is a string, whereas x here, I really want it to display whatever this number x is. So if I were to put it in quotes, it would just print the letter x, but I want this to be the same value that we're using in the for loop. So I'm going to save this. Let's call it while_script. And now let's go back to the command window. One thing I want to draw your attention to is notice that nowhere in this script is x defined. So if I try to run it as it is just now, we're going to have an error. So let me show you. If I do while script, we get this unrecognized function or variable x. So let's try x equal to 2, for instance. So remember, scripts can access variables in the command window. And now let's run our while script. So we can see here, remember we said, is it less than 12? So 2 is definitely less than 12. Then 2 becomes 2 plus 3, so it becomes 5. And we do display another loop. Then 7, 9, 11. And then when we add, oh sorry, I think I might have done this incorrectly. But basically, we go through until finally we get to an x that's not less than 12. So then we jump out of the while loop and we display our final result. So here we see our final result was 14. So we can't go back through the while loop because 14 is not less than 12. So another thing that we can do is maybe even so I can just show you. I was trying to explain it with words and confused myself. So let's display x here. So we're going to reassign x for each loop. And now let's go back and run it again just so we can see a little bit more clearly. And oops, something went wrong. Oh, I see. Does anyone know what the error is? So this is a good mistake to catch. So remember, x got updated to 14. I want x to be equal to 2 to start with. Now let's run our script again. So rerun our script. 2 is less than 12, then it gets updated to 5, then 8, then 11, then 14. And finally we get to 14, and that's not less than 12, so we exit the while loop. Another thing that we could do is, let's see, so I was doing it with 14. What if we did something like less than or equal to 12? So we would be able to hit 12 in this case. So as an example, I'm going to save this. Now let's say x equal to 0. And let's run our while script. and we can see here. So notice what happens is we get to 12, and the while loop says if x is less than or equal to 12, so 12 is equal to 12, then we enter the while loop again, then we add 3, that gets to 15, and then when we kind of go back around, 15 is not less than or equal to 12, so that's when we get to the final result. So one example of if we have less than or equal to, for instance, in our while loop. So we've seen an example with a script. Let's see a quick example with a function. So maybe I'll call this, let's see, while function. And as an input, let's have a natural number n. As an output, let's have a vector v. And this is, again, going to follow the very similar or kind of very famous pattern. So hopefully this isn't the first time you've seen it. If it is, go back to some of the other videos from this unit. But remember, we're going to initialize v as an empty vector. And I'm going to say, while the length of v is less than n, I'm going to take our vector v, and I'm going to say extend v, so keep v the same, and then append n to it. Then we got to end our while loop. And let's see, why is it not happy with this v? It's just warning us here that every iteration the vector is changing size. So that's what we want for this case. So I'm going to save it as while function, and let's go run it. So let's try while function of 3. And we can see here we get a vector with 3 3s. We can try while function of 5, and what do you think the output should be? We get 5 5s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could even try something like while of pi. Oops. And while function, my bad. Here when we do while function of pi, so pi is 3.1416, so a little bit bigger than 3. So we have vector length 1, 2, 3, then it gets to, when it gets to 3, length 3 in the while loop. So let's go back. Oops, wrong direction. That's the Wikipedia page on Dirichlet's theorem. That's something we're going to be working on in an upcoming video. Oops, I don't have my script open actually, or function. So when we go to the function, notice we want the length of v to be less than n. So in this case, we're thinking less than pi. So when it's length 3, that's less than pi. Then we update it one more time, and now it has length 4, and 4 is definitely greater than pi. So that's why we get 4 entries in this while function for pi. Otherwise, I think this is a good place to stop. In the next video, we're going to be talking about we're really going to be doing more with these while loops. We're going to be talking about what happens if you get stuck in an infinite loop in a couple videos from now. So lots more practice upcoming with while loops. But otherwise, this is a good place to stop, and I will see you in the next video.